Hello everyone, John Maher here. It's Thursday the 2nd of October and this is your weekly Grass10 grazing management update on the dairy edge. It has been a good week for grass supply, I suppose, to say the least. We held for the week with an average farm cover of 860 or 308 per livestock unit. Grass growth was 45 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day, and demand on pasture base last week was 40. And the average pre-grazing yield was about 1850. So that was all the good news, that we managed to increase grass supply by a little. However, I suppose next week is a different story, or the week ahead. The cow's diet in the week gone by was about 14 kilograms of grass, about 4 kilos of meal, and about 2 kilograms of silage, dry matter. But given next week's growth predictions of about 35 on average, and with last week's demand figures of 40, I would say that we have reached peak cover at 860 last week for the last week of September. It's unlikely we will hit 900 given the predicted growth rates. So about 40% of farms have an average farm cover of over 900 kilograms of dry matter. But and they have been growing higher rates of grass. There's no doubt about that, as grass grows grass. But the predicted growth this week will range from about 40 in the east to about 25 on the western seaboard. The western seaboard is predicted to get a lot of rain. So there's a lot of change in the way. The average growth rate is probably somewhere about 35. But that means that, if you take last week's demand, we are going to grow more than we eat unless things change. The rainfall predictions for the week are varying from about 1 inch in the east to about 2.5 inches in the western part of the country. And, this will bring its own challenges now. So dry matter was ranging from about 12% in Moore Park to about 14 or 15% in the Midlands and North. But the week will change and there will be challenges out there. But anyway, today is the 2nd of October in grazing terms. This week is the start of the grazing season. I suppose the biggest influence in grass supply in early spring is the closing date or the closing quantity of grass in the autumn. This is largely determined by the farmer. About 2/3 of the grass available on February 1st is or what should be carried over from October. For many farms, closing up then will begin in early October. And the demand for grass in early spring has been rising over the last number of years, particularly due to, increased calving rate, and I suppose to a lesser degree with increased stocking rate, but also because the animals are producing more and therefore the intake is higher than before and they reach in peak a little bit earlier than before in terms of peak intake. So that's put a lot of pressure now on grass supply in the spring, and in order to have it then, what happens in the autumn is a huge determining factor. And it's under the farmer control. I admit that weather is a factor, but not as big a factor as what happens at closing up. If we close with less grass in the autumn, we are certainly going to have less grass available in the spring. So I suppose a word of warning to everybody, we go back to last spring in 2025. Many farms could have been out day and night, but didn't have the grass supply there to take advantage of it. So just keep that in mind as we close up the farm this year. Right, so in terms of autumn grazing then, to get this right, we need an autumn rotation planner, and that needs to be created in all farms, I suppose. The target to have about 67% of the farm grazed and by the 1st of November and closed up. On heavier land, that will be a lot higher than that, probably closer to 80-90%, depending on the weather. Really, on heavy land, it's a case of more about, I suppose, grazing conditions rather than grass supply. The rotation length on October 1st should be at least 35 days. Closing up for many will begin, as I said, in the next few days. On heavier farms, that could have started already in late September. And farms with a big demand probably should start in the next few days, right? Where you have early calving date, big calving rate, high stocking rate. You're going to need a lot of grass very, very early. So the paddocks need to be cleaned out well now. All right, the paddocks in the next week or two need to be cleaned out well because they're going to carry the most grass. So keep that in mind as we start to close up. We have to clean these off. They have to carry the most grass over the winter. By December 1st, they will have covers close to 13, 14, 1500. So they have to carry that grass across the winter. And if they're well cleaned out, there'll be less decay and they will store better. On the other hand, then, I suppose certain parts of the country are going to receive a high level of rainfall now in the next few days, making grazing conditions more difficult. I suppose this is particularly true of Kerry and to a lesser extent the Western Seaboard, but parts of West Limerick, Kerry, West Clare, they've had a tough time with weather now in the last few weeks, and rainfall has been, well above normal. So there are challenges there. While last week was a bit of a reprieve, there will be challenges in the week ahead. This means then, you're talking about allocating grass every 12 hours in order to minimize damage, and for some, on-off grazing will be required to keep grass in the diet. For certain parts, with the rainfall that's forecasted, some herds may have to do a bit of housing for a while, but every effort has to be tried and made to keep grass in the diet, and that means silage management must be got right. If the animals go out full of silage in the morning, their appetite for grass is reduced, and their ability to graze and clean paddocks is also reduced. So keep that in mind. We're talking about closing up now. For some people, unfortunately, the farm cover isn't high enough. People like me have to suggest that, if you have farm cover less than 700, you're going to need supplement in the diet when you put in silage or other forage in that piece of the jigsaw. Grazing can become compromised in terms of getting the residuals right. So keep that in mind. So I would love if farmers had enough grass on the farm and for most of October could keep forages or silage out of the diet to try and keep grazing right. But the figures that we have, it's unlikely we'll reach an average farm cover of 900. Only 40% of farms have that. So for many farms, additional supplement will be needed to keep grass in diet as long as possible. That's what will have to happen. That means that it's heads up grazing, and you're going to have to manage the strip wire and get the cows to clean off the paddocks as well as possible, even though you have additional feed and diet. That's where the challenge is, and that becomes particularly difficult when the weather is not great on the ground you're grazing or overhead. In terms of autumn reseeds then, paddocks that have reseeded during August have developed quite rapidly over the last 2 weeks, I would say. I stood in a reseeded field this week that was sown exactly a month, was shocked by the level of development of it. I admit it was down in East Cork, but the tree grass leaves were there, the tree clover stalks were there, most of the clover plants had tree stalks and 2 plants with what we call tree leaves, and then the last plant had what was called the spade or one leaf. But that puts us in the zone of, in terms of herbicide control, right on the point of where we can do that. So it's the best chance to try and control docks on the farm, in particular, where the docks are, the size of a €2 coin, and that's the ideal stage. If the weather presents itself, and as we go further into autumn, the day length gets shorter, the amount of dry days gets less, the amount of wind-free days gets less. So if the opportunity presents itself, I wouldn't be shy about trying to get the herbicide out and to be brave on it. At this stage, most reseeds that were done in August, to me, should be ready to rock in terms of herbicide control and probably ready for grazing, certainly if they have a cover of 700 or 800 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. All our reseeded paddocks that were done this year, they should remain on short rotation to me, 21, 25 days. They grow rapidly. They suck up nutrient or take up nutrient a lot faster than other paddocks. So I think it's better off to try get into those at 11, 1200 of cover, get them cleaned off. Don't go long rotation. Don't go high covers in them. Take advantage of when the weather is good to go in and graze them. So you have to be kind of flexible and opportunistic. Lastly, then, to our feature farmer, interesting character in Shane Hegarty. He was the young farmer category winner of the Grassland Farmer of the Year, farm based near Milford and Carlow, quite elevated hill farm. Anybody who operates in a hill farm will know the challenges with that. This man has made rapid progress in a very, very short period of time. Phenomenal, to say the least. And come from about 200 cows, I suppose, 4 or 5 years ago to over 240 today. Rapidly developing the farm in terms of reseeding. He reseeded almost 20% of the farm this year, I would say. Growing, developing all the time, doing phenomenal things in terms of grass. The farm has grown over 14 tons already. He's already at 9 grazing events on the 1st of October. It is something else to put it mildly. And look, Shane will tell you it has been a good year for him in terms of grass production. The farm has a big mix of soil types. from soft to the top and soft maybe the bottom and drier in the middle. But the farm goes up close to almost 1,000 feet to the top. Saying all that, the farm has, as I said, grown over 14 tons, 9 grazing events completed by October 1st. About a half bale per cow made off the farm in terms of surplus grass this year. Well over 400 kilograms of mixed solids sold already, and the farm is I suppose, going to supply over 500. I suppose, in summary, I hope Shane can repeat this for many years to come. Now, where is Shane at today? So Shane's at a farm cover of 930, grew 50, demand of 54. The stocking rate's high here at about 3.2. Cover for livestock unit around 292. So, he probably has peaked at this stage in terms of grass supply. The diet for the week gone by was 17 kilos of grass, 3 kilos of meal. I would say safely to say that silage is on the way to try and keep grass on diet as long as we can. His target farm cover for the 1st December is close to 800. Current milk yield is about 16.5 litres at 6.1 fat and about 4.46 protein. So doing that 1.75, 1.8 kilograms of mixed solids per day. Last fertilizer spread that was spread back in earlier September was about 20 units of nitrogen per acre. So having seen the farm, which is growing well now, it was notable that the recovery growth rate was higher than the average growth rate. There's a message in that. I suppose he has been grazing covers closer to 2,000, but that will come down now, and the silage will come in to try and keep grass in the diet because the demand is high. Allocating grass every 12 hours since early September, and the current rotation length is about 37 days. In terms of reseeding, Shane has done a lot of reseeding in the spring, no autumn reseeds. He's currently grazing reseeds on what I would call a short rotation of about 20-25 days. And I suppose, which I should have mentioned earlier, he's spreading 1,500 gallons of a collecting yard tank after grazing. And that material from the collecting yard tank, is a valuable source of nitrogen that can contribute to the growth of the farm during October. So keep that in mind. Shane is having his open day on the farm today, Thursday the 2nd of October. So best luck with that, Shane, and best luck with the years to come. It's truly phenomenal performance in a very short period of time. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website, and the link to the newsletter is also in the description of this podcast. I suppose we'd like to also thank our supporters of the Grass10 campaign, which are AIB, Grassland Agro, Department of Agriculture and Food and the Marine, FBD and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I will talk to you next week. Best luck in the week ahead.